Way back when, if you will, back in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, I belonged to, uh, well, you would almost call it a group chat today because of the internet, but this was before the internet. And so we weren't able to communicate in real time. Instead, the participants in this group chat, who were fans and writers in science fiction and fantasy, would write a monthly installment, if you will, of whatever they wanted to write about. And one of the participants was AJ Sobchak, who contributed with Fade Away and Radiate, which is a small press publication, and you can kind of see how small it is, right? So it's only a few pages stapled together, and we each did something like that. Mine was so appropriately called An Ego Built for Two. Yeah, I was a bit arrogant then, I still am, but oh well. I enjoyed that. I poked a little fun at myself. I contributed in various different ways. And it lasted for, oh, about 2 years. And then I dropped out of it because other things started occupying my mind. School came around, so college is demanding, and I had to let some things go. And that group chat thing, that exchange, was one of them. And then when I started to look into getting my work published, both the fiction and the poetry, I ran across Fade Away and Radiate in a market listing. And so I decided to submit some poems. Well, it started with one poem, really. I only submitted one at a time because at that time, I didn't have that many poems. And this was one of the first ones that I sent to because I knew the editor. We had a relationship in the past, and I kind of wanted to rekindle that a little bit and say hi through him to the other participants in that group. Well, he decided to accept that first poem. And he also published four others, and I will be reading them in this playlist. So, here they are. This poem is called Shit Happens, and it was the first poem of mine that was published. Shit happens. When the world has finally gone to shit, we'll all be in an awful fix if the cosmic toilet bowl won't flush. And what if there is not a God looking down from high above with a plunger and a toilet brush? We pray to him, but he's not there. And all about, everywhere, the shit we've done just keeps getting deeper. We look for blame. It isn't fair! The fault is ours. We cannot share, and the price we pay keeps getting steeper. And then one day the worst has come. We face it like we've always done. We do too little and far too late. The shit remains for mankind's heir, but man is gone and doesn't care if new life begins to propagate. Tabby and the Rodent Warrior. I saw a mouse in armor marching past, a shield of woven cat hair in its paw. I sat transfixed with both my eyes downcast. It was the weirdest thing I ever saw. He went with purpose to the water dish, then looked about to see he was alone. He hiked his leg, and then I heard a whoosh, while squeaky little chuckles danced around. He finished with the dirty deed he'd done, then strutted round with arrogance and pride. He thumped his shield with vigor, just for fun.
then calmly sauntered off, just out of sight. My kitten came to use the water bowl. You should have heard that angry kitten howl. Toadplay. The toad was looking like a prince, at least to drunken eyes, and so I bent to gently kiss. But, much to my surprise, it croaked and jumped away from me and then began to speak. "I've waited ages to be free. I'll wait some more, you freak!" Then off it jumped to disappear as laughter rumbled round. My drunkenness I could not bear, and slumped down to the ground. When morning came, and I awoke with hazy memory, I recalled the princely toad, and where it chose to pee. I washed my face with earnestness, then drank another bud. The toadly prince had stained my dress. It never did wash out.
I'm going to add a brief comment on Toadplay. You need to remember that this was written back in the 1990s, and the times and attitudes were different then, especially for me. I grew up in a rural Iowa community, and you cannot get a less diverse community than that back in the 90s. Okay. So I wasn't exposed to any diversity until I left that community. The first time was when I went to a spelling bee in Des Moines. Until then, the only African Americans I saw were on TV. But my real exposure to it was when I started college, and especially while I was teaching college. And so I'm a different person today because I have those experiences to draw upon to help me to both support and understand diversity. But when I wrote Toadplay, I didn't have that. So without that understanding, I just played around, made a disrespectful comment that wasn't intended to be disrespectful, it was just intended to be humorous. If I were writing that poem today, well, I just wouldn't write it because of that. But it's part of my history, so it's part of my autobiography, and it was published, and so including it in this playlist is appropriate, even though it may not be as acceptable today as it was back in the 1990s.
Toothbrushes. I buy a toothbrush once a year and put it in the rack beside the others I have bought and never taken back. They gather dust but aren't forgotten, they simply don't get used. I have no teeth for them to brush because mine were abused. I never brushed them as a boy, though Mom warned me of why. My teeth were fine, I told myself, in stubborn boyish pride. Too much candy rotted them, and all were pulled as one, when I was still a youthful man of barely 21. Each year I buy a new toothbrush, a folly, I admit, to help remind me of the cost of pride I can't forget.
Okay, Toothbrushes is more or less autobiographical. The only thing that isn't true is I don't go and buy the toothbrushes every year. I don't need to, and it would be a waste of money. I also don't need the reminder that I don't have any teeth. So I kind of fabricated those elements for the purpose of the poem to just be a little playful about it. But I did eat too much candy and I didn't brush my teeth enough. And, drinking soda at night is not a good idea. And so my teeth basically rotted from the inside out, and I had them all pulled when I was in my early 20s. And it's not fun.
Faux pas. Through the years, my feet have grown. Through it all, I've always known a time would come, my mouth would swell, and both my feet would fit too well.
I hope you liked this video, and if you did, press the button for it and consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you for your time.